Well, it feels like deja vu as I'm making this video. Almost exactly 1 year ago, The Athletic published an article detailing the dysfunction in the Jets organization and why their season went so wrong. Then today, The Athletic published a very similar article. It absolutely rips into Robert Saleh, Nathaniel Hackett, Woody Johnson, and pretty much exposes the entire organization for having a culture of excuse-making, paranoia, and lots of other downright amateur behavior. Now, anytime a report like this comes out, it's important to take a step back and consider who the sources are and what their motivation for sharing the information is. We honestly didn't learn a ton of new stuff from this article. It's a lot of just rehashing what we all observed from watching the team this year, but it's an interesting article nonetheless. I'm not going to discuss everything in the article. I would encourage you to just go read it if you want to see the whole thing, but I do have a couple of thoughts. Number one, how on earth did the Jets coaching staff keep their jobs after what happened this season? I know the answer, but let me vent for just a second. So Coach Hackett was criticized in the article for showing a lack of urgency, lack of attention to detail, and an inability to make adjustments. Pretty much during the preseason, Aaron Rodgers was the offensive coordinator. Anytime he didn't like a call from Hackett, he would just change it. When the offensive line struggled, Hackett showed very little urgency or concern to make it better. And then throughout the season, Hackett apparently only met with Coach Downing and Coach Carter on a regular basis and would wait till the very last minute to meet with the entire offensive staff. So that was cited as a way to make Hackett seem like he was unprepared and didn't focus on the little details. Meanwhile, Coach Saleh constantly made excuses for himself instead of making the most of what he had. He researched a bunch of great Hall of Fame coaches and looked at their records without their starting quarterback and then used that as an excuse, basically saying like, we lost Aaron Rodgers, so what did you expect? And then perhaps the biggest thing that bothered me in the report was Saleh just straight up lied to the media pretty much all season. Now, he's a pretty optimistic guy and generally was that way with the media and around the team, rarely criticizing his own players when he had many opportunities to do so. But in the article, he was quoted as expressing some different sentiments behind closed doors. Saleh blamed much of the offensive struggles on Zach Wilson, the offensive line, and the wide receivers, and he even went as far as to say that it would be a miracle if the team won 8 games with Zach Wilson at quarterback. Number 2, Aaron Rodgers is the GM of the Jets. The article described Joe Douglas as being the assistant GM, according to an AFC executive. And a lot of the decisions that were made were because, quote, that's what Aaron wants. A bunch of players were frustrated with the way Robert Saleh fawned over Rodgers. And it also reported that even Zach Wilson, who grew up idolizing Rodgers and had an existing good positive relationship with Rodgers before the season, was irritated by Robert Saleh's treatment of Rodgers and that his relationship with Rodgers soured over the season. Now, when I heard that part, that made me really sad. Like, I wasn't really surprised by it, but it was just kind of disappointing to hear that. And then my final thought is get Zach Wilson out of there. So I expressed in a video towards the end of the season that I wouldn't mind if Zach ended up staying with the Jets for another year, but I've changed my mind. There is absolutely no benefit that will come from continuing to play for that organization. The problems with the New York Jets are at an organizational level and are not something that Aaron Rodgers can fix. Honestly, they may not even be fixed unless Woody Johnson sells the team. It's actually incredible. There was a report in the story that Woody Johnson is active on Twitter, and he would see things on Twitter and then suggest them to Robert Saleh when they met. So, not sure if Jets Twitter is the best place to be getting ideas for how to run your franchise. So, I think next year is going to be more of the same, and it's not really a hot take. I mean, the coaching staff is just not it. Major changes are needed in New York, otherwise this playoff drought is going to continue. Let me know what you guys thought about the article. Do you think it's being overblown, or is the excessive reaction from some warranted? Let me know down in the comments.